was that noise? No. No. What's that? Oh no, not now. I've got to pull over and check this out. That's just put a stop to that adventure. Oh. It's just gone 3 o'clock in the morning. I finished work half an hour ago. I'm on my way to Snowdonia, and now I'm on the side of the A55, broken down. Right, it's not the end of the world. I am going to miss out on my Snowdonia adventure, but I have a plan. I'm going to have to head back to the northwest. I'll explain the plan and tips for other van life breakdowns and stuff, and explain everything in the morning and get this down to a garage. Fingers crossed it's not going to be off the road overnight, and it's not going to be as big as I think it might be. We slept through the alarm. Let me quickly show you where we parked up last night. There's the van. Now when I turned up here, it's just a little spot that I like. There's a couple of cars parked up here, but it's just countryside and it's really, really quiet around here. But I picked this one spot last night because of 2 reasons, and this is the forward planning involved. Now I don't know if any other van lifers do this, but I overthink an awful lot. So I've got a plan and a scenario for anything that might possibly happen. So I had a breakdown. I could still drive the vehicle very gingerly, very, very gingerly, but I still had a plan. I knew what I was going to do, when I was going to do it, how I was going to do it. This location is in the middle of 3 garages. So if the first garage can't get me in today, or can't get the thing fixed today, or has to have it overnight, I can always go to another one. If that one can't do it, I've got the other one. These are all within around about 5 miles of Danielle's house. So worst case scenario, if this does need to be in the garage overnight, I've got somewhere I can sleep. Number 1, I've got a really good breakdown cover. Not just one, I've actually got 2. One by the AA and one through my insurance. Both of them offer me accommodation if it's needed. So that's definitely something worth looking into. Number 2, another thing that you can do is regular maintenance. That goes without saying. This has got high mileage on it. We're coming up to 138,000 miles, and I average around about 30,000 miles a year. Just with the constant driving around doing adventures that I actually do. Regular maintenance, every 8,000 miles, I get this serviced. Granted, for me, that works out about every 3 or 4 months I have to get a service, but that is going to prevent anything that could potentially happen. A little tip for regular servicing, I've actually got a garage that I spoke to and said, look, I'm going to need servicing every 3 to 4 months. Can you do me a discount if I just come direct to you every time? And he said, yep, not a problem, and I have got a cracking deal on a full service for this every single 8,000 miles. And then the everyday maintenance sort of stuff that you can do. So in the back of the van, underneath the shelving unit, I've got a shelf that I can remove. Inside that, I've got stuff like an air compressor, a jack, a tyre wrench, all that sort of stuff that's general maintenance stuff, coolant, extra oil, just enough to get me off the motorway, so to speak. If I so need it, it's there just in case. So the problem I've got, what caused this breakdown, is something all the way back there. God. I'm glad the farmer didn't decide to plough first thing this morning. I must have needed this sleep if it's like gone 11 o'clock already. It's also a good idea to find camper van breakdown recovery people. So if you go on Instagram and just type in camper van breakdown, you get a few people pop up that's like camper van breakdown Snowdonia, camper van breakdown Wales, and so on and so on. I just drop all them and follow, because in the case of an emergency, it might be worth just giving them a little tinkle. But how did I break down? Well, I'm driving along. It's about half an hour after I'd left work, so the van had had a chance to sort of heat itself up a little bit. It just so happened, so did the brakes. Now I touched the brakes because we were coming into a little 50-mile-an-hour average speed camera setup. So I just touched the brakes, and I got this metal-on-metal grinding noise, which, to be fair, normally just means, oh, brake pads, which doesn't concern me massively. Yes, I had to stop, I had to go back, I had to get it sorted. But what concerned me the most was when I released my foot off the brake pedal, it didn't quite release the brakes instantly like it should do. So I'm like, hold on a second, what? So my only scenario could possibly be is the calipers, the pistons in the calipers aren't retracting like they should do. Either that or the brake master cylinder in the engine bay. Now that's the bit that I'm concerned about, because if that has gone, this is going to be an overnight, because the parts shipping, and it's a mess. It's going to take ages. So that's what's going to end up having this in overnight, if that is the case. It's either that, or the metal on metal has tried to seize the brake while the brake disc and the brake pads together. Maybe that's the issue. I don't know. Let's go down and have a look. It might be a simple case of 20 quid for a load of brake pads chucked in, or it could be something as worse as a full master cylinder brakes, pads, discs, the lot. Let's go and have a look. But that leads me into another tip for all van lifers should do. Have a breakdown fund. That's just some money set aside for breakdowns. For me, I've got £800 just sat there. It's just sat in a bank account. That's my breakdown fund. If I need new tyres, it comes out of the breakdown fund. If it gets to a point where that breakdown fund is starting to dwindle a little bit just because I've had a few breakdowns, then I just chuck in a few days overtime that month, bulk it back up again. Just always make sure I have that figure in the bank just in case of something like this happens. I'm starting to think I'm a bit ADHD with all of these backup plans in place. Let's take it down to the first garage. Is it a bit bad that last night on the drive down to here, it was about 45 minutes and I'm like, oh no, I don't want to use the brakes. So I actively avoided using the brakes as much as possible, using the gears to downshift, use the engine braking to back me off so I didn't have to use the brakes. And it's surprising how little I actually did use the brakes. I kind of like that sort of, you've really got to think about driving, especially when you've been driving for as long as me. And the plan really did work. We tried ATS Auto Parts first. They couldn't help. They just didn't have the space. So now, took it down to Quick Fit, again, just a minute round the corner. Boom. They took it in straight away. They were dead helpful. It's going to be more expensive because it's Quick Fit, but it's going to get it done. After a quick trip to Asda, then over to Greg to get myself a coffee, we went and saw Danielle. Then we got the call to go back and check it out. He was very keen to show me what had happened because it was something he hadn't seen very often. And he was showing me all the pads, how it was all fitted wrongly and how I needed it. And he was just basically justifying his job. But it was rather interesting to check it out. But all this got me thinking about the time when I actually bought the van. See, now when I bought the van off the company that I bought it from, they turned around and said, it's okay, we're going to get it MOT'd and serviced for you before you get it, so you don't need to worry about that. And that was one of the key factors that made me go, okay, then yes, I will buy from you and I will get that van. Perfect. But then I had to get home, and a few weeks later, I'm sort of just doing general maintenance, the normal daily checks, checking my oil and water and stuff like that. And I noticed the oil was pitch black. I thought, that's not been changed. So then I checked the air filter, and that was black. I'm like, they didn't even do the service. They scammed me there. It wasn't that massive. I changed them all. I got the peace of mind that I knew the date that it was now changed. So it wasn't the end of the world. And now, when I actually got the van, I was checking. They said, oh, we're going to have it for a week to do the random valeting and the MOT and stuff like that. Yeah, not a problem. And I was keeping an eye on the MOT checkers online. And it said it failed. It failed on the rear brakes and discs. It failed on a washer, pump, water bottle and the wipers. And then I got it back and everything's been fine. They did change the brake pads. The brake pads, the brake discs, they wouldn't, he said they don't look old. They were done. But the brake pads were actually, instead of being slotted in like that, they were slotted in like that. So they were slightly wrong. The pistons that come out of the calipers that push the brake pads onto the actual thing were off slightly just because they've been put in the wrong way. So that little tiny mistake that company did when they MOT'd this van has just cost me, check it out, £270 for new discs and brakes. But at least I now know that they've been done properly and I know when they're going to be done again. That's van life, baby. Subscribe.